Ohai. Yangon, the largest city and the capital of Myanmar from 1989 to 2005. Before renaming in 1989, Rangoon was known under the name and was the capital of Burma from the moment of finding by the country of independence in 1948. Population about 7 million people. The most important economic, cultural and education center of the country. Large transport hub. On November 6, 2005, the residence of the government is transferred to Naypyidaw. In comparison with other cities of Southeast Asia, in Yangon the greatest number of buildings of a colonial era remained. Originally the village of Ikala, since the 11th century, Dagon, in 1775 the city is renamed into Yangon, a combination of two Burmese words and which in translation respectively are meant by enemies and to end. Thus, the name of the city can be translated as the end of hostility. The colonial name Rangoon, most likely, resulted from an Anglicization of pronunciation of the name of the city on an Arakansky dialect of Burmese. Till 1989 the distorted English name of the city, Rangoon, was used. Yangon has rich and ancient history. According to archaeologists in the 5th century BB here, on the riverbank Yangon, there was a settlement under the name Okala. Okala's inhabitants were engaged generally in fishing. At the beginning of the 11th century, in 1028-1043, on Okala's place there was a settlement of the people of Mon which became known as Dagon. Dagon was the small fishing village which grew around Shwedagon Pagoda. In 1755 the king Alonpaya won Dagon and renamed him into Yangon. The British occupied Yangon during the First Anglo-Burmese War, 1824-1826. However, the city was returned to Burmans after the end of war. The city was destroyed by the fire of 1841. The British established control over Yangon and all Lower Burma following the results of the Second Anglo-Burmese War in 1852. The British administration consistently turned Yangon into the commercial and political center of the British Burma. Yangon was the place of the link of the last emperor of the Empire of Great Mughals Bahadur of Shah II, after the Indian Revolt of 1857. Based on the plan of the Army Engineer Lieutenant Alexander Fraser, the British built the new city with the correct grid of quarters in the delta, on the site limited from the east to the river Pazundong Creek, and from the south and the west the river Yangon. Yangon became the capital of all British Burma after capitulation of the Top Burma as a result of the Third Anglo-Burmese War in 1885. At the British, the Central Hospital of Rangoon and the Rangoon University was founded. Colonial Yangon, with his parks and lakes and a mix of the Western and traditional wooden architecture, gained fame as the Garden City of the East. Before World War II, about 55% natives of India and other countries of the Southern Asia, and only made a third of the semi-million population of Yangon Burmans. The rest of the population was made by Karenna, the Burmese Chinese, English Burman and others. Yangon was the center of the national liberation movement led by communist students from the Rangoon University. 3 nationwide strikes mined the British Dominion in 1920, 1936 and 1938 began in Yangon. From 1942 to 1945 Yangon was occupied by the Japanese troops. It is released by Allies in May, 1945. The city strongly was damaged during war. On January 4, 1948, Yangon became the capital of the Burmese Union. Soon after finding by Burma in 1948 of independence, many colonial names of streets and parks were replaced with the Burmese. In 1989, the name Yangon, which replaced English Rangoon, is returned to the city. During the post-colonial period, Yangon was actively built up. In the 1950s, satellite towns were built up. Such districts of the city as Taketa, Northern and Southern Okalapa. In the 1980s, Hluntaya, Shwapit and Yushnidagam. Today, Bolshogo Yangona Square makes about 600 km. Yangon is located in the lower Myanmar at confluence Yangon and Pegu, approximately in 30 km from the Gulf of Martaban. Climate of Yangon subequatorial. From May to October, the rainy season, in which the most part of annual rainfall drops out, lasts. During a dry season, from November to April, the amount of precipitation is minimum. During a dry season, weather hot, the average maximum reaches +37 C in April, an average minimum at the same time of +24.3 C. Yangon is operated by Committee on Development of Yangon. IPS. The committee also coordinates questions of city planning. The city is divided into 4 districts. Districts unite 33 areas. Each area is operated by a committee of regional leaders who make decisions on improvement and development of infrastructure. Their jurisdiction doesn't extend to satellite towns. Yangon, the most densely populated city of Myanmar, however, estimates of population of the city are very various. The last population census in Myanmar was conducted in 1983. According to, in 2010, the population of the city made 4.35 million people. However, according to assessment of the United States Department of State of 2009, population of the city made 5 million people. Most likely, assessment of the United States Department of State, more precisely as assessment of the Union, doesn't consider expansion of borders of the city for the last 2 decades. After 1948, the population of the city considerably grew due to population shift from other regions of the country. Generally actually Burmans. To such satellite towns as the Southern Okalapa and Taketa in the 1950th and in East, Northern and Yushnidagam in the 1990th. The decision on transfer of the capital in Naypyidaw became the reason of moving of unknown number of civil servants. Yangon, the most multinational city of the country. If before World War II the relative majority of the population of Yangon was made by Hindus, then today most of the population of the city have the Burmese origin. Large communities are made by natives of India and other countries of the Southern Asia and the Burmese Chinese, who are still mainly living in the quarters adjacent to the downtown. Mixed marriages, especially between Burmans and Chinese, aren't a rarity. Also, the considerable number of Arakanets and Karen lives in the city. The main language of communication is Burmese. Popular languages for studying, besides English, are Chinese, Japanese, French and Korean. Economy. Yangon, the main shopping and industrial center of the country, the center of show business and tourism. In the city, the 5th part of gross domestic product of Myanmar is made. According to data of official statistics in 2010-2011 tax year, the size of economy of Yangon was 8.93 trillion kyats, or 23% of national VVV. The city, key commercial center of the Lower Myanmar for all types of goods, from the main food to used cars, though trade development is interfered significantly by the undeveloped banking sector and a condition of infrastructure. In Yangon, the Bainang market, the largest center of trade in rice, haricot, bean and other agricultural goods, is located. Also in Yangon, the largest and most loaded port of the country, Kailava, is located. In Yangon, the share of informal trade, which main place are the street markets located along streets of the downtown, is big. However, on June 17, 2011, the City Committee on Development declared the future ban of trade on streets. It was resolved from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and permission of street trade only in areas of residence. Since December 1, 2009 in Yangon, use of polyethylene of high density in plastic packages is forbidden. The industry creates considerable number of jobs. Yangon surrounds at least 14 industrial zones. About card workers were employed at 4,300 enterprises located in which, for a condition of N of 2010. The city, the center of clothing industry, her products is annually exported from the country for the sum of $292 million. For more than 80% of factory workers, employment is a constant. Many of them young-aged women from 15 to 27 years which arrived in Yangon from other regions of the country in search of the better life. The industry suffers from structural, for example, a chronic lack of capacities, and political, economic sanctions, problems. In 2008, requirement of factories of Yangon for the electric power made 120 million. Needs of all city were estimated by from 250 million to 530 million. The chronic shortage of the electric power is the reason of restriction of work of the industrial enterprises from 6 to 8 in the evening. Important source of employment also is construction. Moving of many government agencies and civil servants to the Naypyidaw negatively affected the industry. According to the new construction standards adopted in August 2009, builders are obliged to provide creation not less than 12 parking spaces on each floor of the built building. In 2009-2010 fiscal year, only 334 construction licenses, 582 in 2008-2009, were issued. Important source of foreign currency is tourism, though in comparison with other countries of Southeast Asia the flow of tourists is insignificant. About card before Saffron Yellow Revolution in September 2007. The number of tourists fell after the Saffron Yellow Revolution and the Hurricane Nargis. Recent improvement of political climate in the country attracts the increasing number of foreign tourists and businessmen. In 2011, the passenger traffic of the international airport of Yangon made card up to card people. However, because of underinvestment, only 300 of the total number of 800 hotel places are suitable for accommodation of tourists. Education. In Yangon, the best educational institutions of Myanmar are located. However, in the city, inequality of opportunities between poor and rich schools is brightly expressed. Almost deprived of public financing, schools are forced to rely on voluntary and compulsory collecting and donations from parents. That is the reason of leaving of study by many pupils from poor families. In Yangon about 20 universities and colleges, including the oldest and most known university of Myanmar, the Yangon University, are located. However, today he trains generally graduate students and doesn't implement the program of a bachelor degree. After the national revolt of 1988, the military government closed the university and transferred the most part of students of the university to new higher education institutions, such as the Gaona University, University of East Yangon and University of the Western Yangon. Nevertheless, the best higher education institutions of the country still are in Yangon. Some specialties can be received only in higher education institutions of the city. The most popular of them are the first and second medical universities, the Yangon Technological University, the University of Computer Researches and the Sea University of Myanmar. Transport. The international airport Yangon, located in 19 km from the downtown, is the main air harbor of the country. From him direct flights to the largest cities of Asia: Dhaka, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Beijing, Seoul, Guangzhou, Taipei, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Kunming and Singapore, and also internal flights in 20 directions, the main of them to Pagan, Mandalay, Hilo, Njapali and Naypyidaw are made. The central station of Yangon, the main terminal of the railroads of Myanmar network, with the total length of 5403 km. The Ring Railroad of Yangon, 45.9 km long, numbering 39 stations, connects suburbs of Yangon. Only trains plying on the line about card tickets daily are on sale. Total length of highways of Yangon is 4456 km. As of March 2011. The majority of roads are in a deplorable state and don't cope with a stream of cars. The most part of residents isn't able to afford to have the privately owned vehicle and uses public transport. About buses transporting about 4.4 million passengers a day act on about 3,000 routes of public and private carriers. All buses and 80% of the taxi in Yangon use the compressed natural gas according to the government decree of 2005. 2 long-distance bus stations work in the city. Since 1970 in Yangon right-hand traffic works. Nevertheless, on city roads it is still possible to meet very many right-hand drive cars made for left-hand traffic. Generally imported from Japan. 4 main passenger piers of Yangon located in the downtown serve generally local ferries going in Dala, Tangkline and the delta of Irrawaddy. The 35 km channeled Vante is the shortest way connecting from the 1990th Yangon and the delta of Irrawaddy. The 6-kilometer tram line was opened in Yangon on January 11, 2016. On it the second-hand cars delivered from Japan are used. Sites. The huge gold mortar Shwedagon towers over the city. Around a mortar, the temple complex from several tens pavilions. For foreigners, special elevators are equipped not to rise by the platform hundreds of steps. On perimeter the platform is divided into 8 parts corresponding to 8 stars and 8 days of the week. In the traditional Burmese astrological calendar, Wednesday is divided into 2 parts. In each of 8 sections there are pavilions where sanctuaries of spirits Natov are located. By tradition of a gift to notes and meditation in the pavilion corresponding to day of the week when the person was born lead to fulfillment of desires. In one of pavilions the bell which British, trying to take away, drowned in the river hangs, and the Burmese engineers pulled out from silt and put back. Opposite to Shwedagon, one more pagoda of the smaller size, Mokha Vizaya, who, nevertheless, has no for believers of special sacral value and is visited much worse. It was built in 1980 by the General Orthast when ruling the country in 1962-1988 that, by an example of sovereigns of antiquity to improve own karma. The Mortar Tusula located in the downtown at the intersection of the main streets according to the legend stores Buddha's hair. At a Mortar Sula bring flowers to Buddha of days of the week and water them. Kabe's mortar was constructed according to the proposal of the first Prime Minister of independent Burma at well to the Sixth World Buddhist Synod which took place in 1954-1956. Around a mortar there are Buddha's images brought from all Buddhist countries of the world. The huge lying Buddha is in the Chakachi Pavilion. On the drawing of trace of Buddha by which astrologers determine his future. The synagogue Musmakashua based even during the English dominion. Most of the Jewish families left Burma long ago, and the synagogue services mainly embassies and foreigners. National Museum of Myanmar. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.